Good evening, everyone. Please let me know if I am audible. Good evening, everyone. Am I audible? Good evening, Rohit. Yes, students. So first, I welcome all of you all to this exciting session on CSI Net Part C question discussion. Good evening, Hina. Good evening to all of you present over here. So myself, I am Dr. Violet, and today we will be discussing the Part C questions from Unit 7, that is System Physiology, Animals. So particularly today, we are going to discuss the Part C questions from cardiovascular system, as well as we will see the questions from respiratory system. Yes, yes, Saujanya, good evening. So let's get started. So the first question that you can see on the screen is the different waves of normal electrocardiogram, that is ECG, of a human subject are shown below. The relationship of the events of cardiac cycle to these ECG waves are proposed in the following statements. A. The P wave occurs due to depolarization of atria. B. The atrial repolarization is responsible for the T wave. C. The QRS complex occurs during ventricular depolarization. D. QT interval indicates plateau portion of auricular action potential. So this is the figure that you can refer to, that they have shown and given you in the question as well. So this question is related to ECG, right? And what they have asked in the question, select the combination with incorrect statements from the following options. So make a note of it. It is, you have to find the incorrect statements. So can you all tell me what should be the right answer over here? Is it A and B, B and C, C and D, or B and D? So you have to find the incorrect statements. So it is based on the waves related to ECG. Okay, I see some students answering 2, some said 3, some said 4. Okay, let us still wait for other students who are still answering. Okay. Okay. So let's now see what is the right answer. Okay, so first I'll show you the answer. The answer over here is option. We have to select the combination with incorrect statements, right? So let us read through the statements and find it out. So P wave occurs due to depolarization of atria. So this is absolutely right, right? So A is correct. Now B says the atrial repolarization is responsible for the T wave. Is it the atrial repolarization that is for T wave? No, right? So as many of you have said, option 4. So yes, B is one of the statements that is incorrect. Yes, Jubin, Hina, Surender. Yes, correct, Hina. Absolutely right. So B is incorrect because T wave indicates the ventricular repolarization, because atria has started to repolarize right from QRS. When the ventricles went for depolarization, at the same time atria went for repolarization. So that is why B is incorrect. Okay. And the C statement says the QRS complex occurs during ventricular depolarization. So that is what just now I told you. QRS is ventricular depolarization. So C is a correct statement. Right. Now let's talk about D statement. So D states that QT interval indicates plateau portion of auricular action potential. So if I say plateau portion, so what should be the millivolt? What should be the potential over here? What should be the value if it is a plateau portion? Can you all tell me? Yes, Pragati, right. So what will be the value if it indicates, if it is written over here plateau portion? So what you should see the value, how much value it should be, the QT interval. Anybody can let me know? What should be value? Should be 20, 30, 0. What should be the value? 1, 2. If I say plateau portion, because plateau portion, what is the membrane potential of plateau portion of the graph in cardiac cycle? So it depolarizes and reaches to what value? Plateau portion will be what, students? As you can see over here. So if you remember this graph, okay, so it depolarizes, reaches to plus 20, and then it goes back, right? To which value it goes back? It goes back to around 0 millivolt. So that is what we see over here. So if you see QT interval, okay, so QT interval, is it indicating 0? Is it the plateau phase? No, right? So that is why D is also incorrect. So the right answer will be option B and D. Okay, Gautami, what you are saying is about the time intervals. Okay, so that is different. Here I'm asking the membrane potential. So it should be 0. If we say plateau portion means the value should be 0. It should not be like a peak, right? Okay, so that is what we have to understand over here. QT interval indicates plateau. No, it does not indicate plateau. Okay, so D is incorrect. Right, so the right answer for this question is your option 4. Okay, and this is the normal electrocardiogram, how it looks. So you can see over here, ST segment is basically the plateau portion, okay, where the value is 0. Right, students? Okay, so here also you can see these values where the graph is 0. So those indicates the plateau portion, remember. Right, so QT is not indicating the plateau portion because the value is not 0. Okay, so it goes up and down. So the values are differing. It is not 0. So that is why the right answer is option 4. Now let's move ahead and just remember what is indicated by P. P is atrial contraction. So first atria will depolarize. That will lead to contraction. Then QRS is ventricular contraction. So even for ventricles also, first they will depolarize. That will lead to their contraction. Then the T wave is indicating ventricular repolarization. That will lead to relaxation. Right? While atria has already started to relax when the ventricles went for depolarization. So right from QRS, the atria has started to relax. Okay, so now let's move ahead and let us try to solve the next question. So again, it is related to action potentials from essay note. So the action potential recorded from pacemaker tissue, that is SA and AV node of mammalian heart, is shown in the following diagram. On the basis of mechanism of generation of action potential in pacemaker tissue, that is SA and AV node, the following statements were proposed from the above figure. A, funny channels are activated by B. So there are 5 statements, okay, and you have to see what this small A, B, C, D indicate, okay. So funny channels are activated by B. Outward flow of potassium occurs at A. T calcium channels are closed at C. Fast sodium channels are opened at D. The upward phase at D is largely due to inward movement of sodium. So there are 5 statements. You have to find which one of the following combinations represents the correct statement over here. So I'll give you some time. Okay, okay, Pragati. What about others? We'll give some time. Take your time and try to answer this correctly because this question needs little time. Okay. Good. Pragati is very quick and answered correctly. Anupam. Okay. You have to answer the correct statements. I think you're answering the incorrect ones. Maybe you can try again, Anupam. Okay. So for this, it is quite a yes, Rohit, very good. Surinder, correct, absolutely right. Good. So for this particular question, okay, always remember that you have to go through this graph. Okay, you have to remember this graph, right? So this is the graph for your essay node. So the right answer, as many of you all, yes, Gautami, you are right. So the right answer will be option 1. Okay, and how will we solve this? So you have to remember this graph. Okay, this is the graph for the action potential generated by the essay node. So this is, there are 3 phases as you can see over here. This is phase 4, then phase 0 and phase 3. So you have to remember which all channels open and closes. So this is a very important part from where you see part C questions. So these are graph based questions, very simple. If you know, you get 4 marks. If you don't know, you can just don't do it wrong, okay, because negative marking is there. Just try to be correct. So funny channels are activated by B. So B is over here, means they so in this figure what you see is this part, okay, means phase 4, 0 and 3. So they have little bit made it confusing so that one more peak you can see over here, but it is, so this A we can imagine it's over here, right? So this is B, that is when it is starting to depolarize. So that time funny channels are activated by B, correct? Okay, because B is what? Funny channels are caused by the slow sodium channels. Okay, so that is why statement A is correct and you have to find the correct statements. B, outward flow of potassium occurs at A. So A is indicating a potassium movement that is going outside. So again, this outward flow of potassium occurs at A. So this is B statement is also correct. Now, third, the C statement, it says T calcium channels are closed at C. Now, if you follow this figure, you will see that calcium channels are not closed. So they'll not close until unless it reaches the threshold value. Okay. And still above that also in 0, you have the L phase calcium channels that open. But yes, they have said about T. So it does not close at C. Okay. Because still it reaches 40, the threshold, it will not close. So that is why C is incorrect statement over here. Okay. What is T? Can you all tell me what is the T calcium channels? What type of channels are T? Are you aware of it? Yes. What are T? Very good, Pragati. Absolutely right. It's transient. Okay. Those are open for a short duration, but yes, the membrane potential should reach to the threshold. Only then the next channel will, this channel will close. Okay. That is the T will close. So C is incorrect. Next, D. Fast sodium channels are opened at D. Now, if you see over here, D, okay, if you go over here, so D is indicating the phase 0. During phase 0, remember, sodium channels are not responsible for phase 0. You can see sodium will close. So what is responsible? The calcium channels. And which calcium channel? The L-type calcium channel. That is your long-lasting calcium channel. Okay. So that is why statement D again stays incorrect. Fast sodium channels are not opened at D. Okay. It is your calcium channels, L-type calcium channels that open up. So D is again incorrect. Now let's see why E is incorrect. So the upward phase at D is largely due to inward movement of sodium. So this D, where it is the upward phase at D is largely, so again as I said, it is not due to the movement of sodium. What it is due to the movement of calcium ions. Okay, the upward movement that we see in this graph. So E again stands incorrect. So the right answer will be your A and B. That is why option 1 will be the right answer, students. Right? So this is a very important graph. Keep this in mind. It looks little confusing, okay, but it is not confusing. You have to be very specific, when what channel opens, what channels open in phase 4, what channels open in phase 0, what channels are responsible for phase 3, right? And the explanation I have also written over here. Okay, so already I discussed about this. At the end of repolarization, when the membrane potential is very negative, ion channels open that conduct first initially it is sodium currents. So these currents are funny currents. Okay, then repolarization will occur. Phase 3, so this is phase 3, as potassium channels open. Okay, at the same time L-type calcium channels become inactive, means when phase 3 occurs, L-type will become inactive and they will close. So this will decrease the calcium current and the inward depolarizing calcium currents will close over here. So that was the second question. Now we move ahead. Okay, so this question is again from cardiovascular system. The pacemaker cells of sinoatrial node, SA node as it is known as, they are inhibited by the stimulation of vagus nerve. The probable mechanisms of this inhibition are stated below. Okay, as follows. A, the acetylcholine regulated potassium channels are activated. B, the outward potassium causes hyperpolarization of pacemaker cells. C, the inward funny current of pacemaker potential is increased. D, the increased intracellular cyclic AMP induced by activation of M2 muscarinic receptors slows the opening of calcium channels. So you have to choose the answer with correct statements. So this is related to the regulation part. Okay, so here they are asking the mechanism of inhibition through the vagus nerve. Can you all try and tell me what should be the right answer? You have to find the correct statement. What happens, okay, when the vagus nerve is stimulated? Yes. Can you all try and tell me? Sayanthini, one statement is correct, the other one is incorrect. Anyways, good try. You can try for the other one. So you can see, sometimes in cardiovascular system, you will see a lot of graph-based questions and even statement-based questions. So you should be very thorough with these two types of questions. Statement-based questions will usually come from regulation part. Okay, how the heart rate increases or how the SA node contraction increases or what will happen, what happens when the contraction decreases. Okay, which nerve works and how it is being regulated. So regulation is also a very important topic from where you will see statement-based questions are asked. Okay, and graph based, as we already discussed, 2-3 questions, they were all graph based from ECG. Okay, that is important graph based questions from the cardiac cycle. Then in the last session we were discussing about the time interval based questions, so those are also important. Okay, very good, Rohit, correct. Tomar C. Okay, okay. Surender, good, very good. So the right answer is your option 3, students. Okay, many of you have answered correctly. Kavita, I will not be able to zoom because if I zoom, I won't be able to write. I won't be able to annotate. Okay, so you can zoom it in your device and check. Yes, so the right answer is your option 3. Now, how will you solve this question? Now, for this, please remember this graph. Okay, how, so this is for the normal, we just discussed now for the SA node, what is the graph? We discussed this is phase 403. Okay, so the black peak is for the normal SA node graph. Now, what happens when there is vagal activity? Okay, vagus nerves get activated during parasympathetic autonomic nervous system and gets activated. Okay, and so this is showing you the green peak. Okay, so the curve is little bit shifting towards the right, the whole peak. Okay, so the slope of this phase 4, what you can see, slope is increasing or decreasing for the green line. Is the slope increasing or decreasing? In statistics, we study, right, about the slope. So what, by seeing this figure, what you'll understand, is the slope increasing or decreasing? It is decreasing, right, students? Yes. Okay, so this slope will decrease when there is parasympathetic activation. And the red peak that you can see over here, this is when the sympathetic division gets activated. So that time the slope is increasing. You can see the how the graph is changing. Okay, and in between is your normal. Okay, so here the phase 4 slope is increasing. When vagus nerves get activated, yes, Sayanti, right. So it is decreasing. Okay, so in the figure itself, you can see the slope. They have mentioned it is decreasing. Phase 4 slope is decreasing. And for the red curve, the phase 4 slope is increasing. So now here, when they ask you about vagal activity, so remember it is parasympathetic division that gets activated. Okay. So when parasympathetic division gets activated, what happens to the SA node? SA node will contract more or the contraction decreases. What happens? To the contraction of heart. Can you all tell me when the parasympathetic division gets activated? Contraction increases or decreases? We have sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? So what happens when the sympathetic division gets when the parasympathetic division gets activated? So what do you all can understand by this figure itself? When the parasympathetic division is getting activated, will the heart contract more or less? Any guesses? Any try? Good, Surender. It will decrease, right? So remember that. So accordingly, you can now, if you know that vagus activity is associated with parasympathetic division, so you have to consider all those statements where the contraction of the heart will decrease. Okay, so now let's see the statements. So acetylcholine regulated potassium channels are activated. Yes. Okay, so during parasympathetic division, it releases acetylcholine into the SA node that binds to muscarinic receptors. It decreases pacemaker rate by increasing potassium conductance. Okay, means potassium conductance is increasing and the pacemaker currents are decreasing. That is the IF current. Sodium currents will decrease. That is why the slope is increasing. The slope is decreasing. Okay, and there is slow inward calcium currents. Right. So A and B is correct over here. When the vagus nerve is getting activated, so it decreases or inhibits the SA node. So potassium channels are getting activated. Outward potassium causes hyperpolarization of pacemaker cells. So A and B is correct. Now just now I told you funny currents will decrease. So it is written here increased. So C is incorrect. Okay. And definitely there will be activation of muscarinic receptors. Okay. But it will not increase the cyclic AMP levels. It will decrease the cyclic AMP levels. So that is why the option D is again incorrect. So we have to find the correct statements. So the correct statements over here will be A and B, that is option 3. Yes, MRD, right. Okay, so quickly I'll go through these statements. So you can make a note of it. It is very important. And remember this graph as well. So once if they ask you about vagal activity, maybe next time they'll ask you what happens during sympathetic division activity. Okay, so it releases acetylcholine onto the SA node. that binds to the muscarinic receptors. It decreases the pacemaker rate by increasing potassium conductance and decreasing the pacemaker currents, that is IF current will decrease, and slow invert calcium currents. So these changes in ion currents decrease the slope of phase 4 of action potential, thereby increasing the time required to reach the threshold. So you can see the graph. Okay, so the time will increase to reach this threshold value. Vagal activity also hyperpolarizes the pacemaker cell during phase 4. So hyperpolarization will occur, okay, during phase 4, which contributes to longer time to reach the threshold voltage. The M2 and M4 muscarinic acetylcholine receptors are coupled to, it is a G protein coupled base signaling that occurs. Okay, so it decreases cyclic AMP levels by inhibiting adenylate cyclase enzyme. Right? So the right answer for this question will be option 3. Okay. So let's move ahead. Okay, before I move to the next question, so I would like to share about the Watson Impact Scholarship that Biotechnica has just introduced. It's so why scholarship program where you will get different levels of scholarship. So many of your friends or colleagues or peers, whoever is interested, they can join, as you all are getting benefits of getting a timely coaching and very regulated classes. So same as well, you can inform your peers, your friends, where you can avail 100% scholarship, even 90% is there, 80%, 50% as well as 25%, where you will get the 5 days classes will be there. There will be, you can get the folders where you can see the PPTs, the videos of the classes. So just inform whoever you know about the scholarship so that they can even avail the benefits of Watson scholarship. So it will really help them to clear CSI net in a very less time and in a stipulated time. And for further information, you can call on this toll-free number that is just shown over here, 1800-1200-1818 or 08050997000. So let's move ahead and continue with our question answer discussion. So the next question is again a statement based question. So what is this statement based question? It is related to your respiratory system. So the question says the chloride content of red blood cells in the venous blood was found to be higher than that in the arterial blood in a human subject. Following proposals were made to explain these observations. Statement A, the high partial pressure of CO2 in venous plasma leads to increased diffusion of CO2 into RBC and the formation of carbonic acid, that is H2CO3. B, bicarbonate content in the RBC of venous blood becomes much greater than that in plasma. C, the excess bicarbonate leaves the RBC of venous blood along with sodium to plasma by a sodium bicarbonate symporter. D, the increased sodium in the venous plasma is transported to the RBC along with chloride. So there are 4 statements, 4 proposals. Okay, these observations has been done. So you have to select the combinations with incorrect statements. Can you all try and tell me? Option 1 is A and B, 2 is B and C, 3 is A and D, and 4 is C and D. So you have to find the incorrect statements over here. Just read the statements carefully because somewhere it is written high, low. So you have to be very careful with all this. And you have to select the right answer. So right answer will be incorrect ones. Yes, Sayanthi, Sayanthi, right? Uh, yes, is it fine, Sayanthi? Could you read it? Statement A is the high partial pressure of CO2 in venous plasma leads to increased diffusion of CO2 into RBC and the formation of H2CO3. B is the bicarbonate content in the RBC of venous blood becomes much greater than that in plasma. C, the excess bicarbonate leaves the RBC of venous blood along with sodium to plasma by a sodium bicarbonate symporter. D, the increased sodium in the venous plasma is transported to RBC along with chloride. Okay, so you have to find the incorrect statements over here. Okay, so many of you all have given me the answer as option 2. So you have to find the incorrect statement, students. So the right answer will be your option 4, that is C and D. Okay, so let's see why the option is C and D. So for this particular question, we have to follow this figure. Okay, that is the exchange that is taking place during external respiration, right? So here, if you see, first, what is happening? The external respiration means the exchange that is taking place between the tissue cells and the blood plasma. Okay, so tissue cells and this blood in the pulmonary capillaries. So capillaries will have deoxygenated blood. Okay, so they'll have more carbon dioxide, right? So carbon dioxide will diffuse from the capillaries into the alveoli, and in turn they'll take the oxygen from the alveoli. So what is happening now inside? There is more of CO2 inside, right? CO2 bound to hemoglobin, CO2. So this is a deoxygenated blood. So deoxygenated blood will carry 70% of CO2 is carried in the form of bicarbonate. So there is a large number of bicarbonate ions. So these will diffuse from the blood or from the plasma into the RBC because bicarbonate is high inside the plasma. Okay. And because bicarbonate is moving from plasma into the RBC to maintain electrical neutrality because bicarbonate is negatively charged, one chloride will move from the RBC into the plasma. So this movement is reverse chloride shift. So this is the understanding that you should have to solve this particular question. Okay. So now let's see the statements. The high partial pressure of CO2 in venous plasma leads to increased diffusion of CO2 into RBC and formation of carbonic acid. Yes, there is high partial pressure of CO2 in venous plasma, right? More CO2 means partial pressure is higher. So A is absolutely correct. That lead to increased diffusion of CO2 into RBC. Okay, and formation of carbonic acid, right? So there is more CO2 and that leads to the formation of more bicarbonate ions. So that is why A is correct. Now B says the bicarbonate content in the RBC of venous blood becomes much greater than that in plasma. Definitely the RBC, the bicarbonate will be high because CO2 is high. Okay, so B is again incorrect as just now I discussed in the figure. Now C says the excess bicarbonate leaves the RBC of venous blood along with sodium to plasma. So it is by a, whenever this movement is occurring, okay, so the excess bicarbonate, how it is being exchanged? It is with the bicarbonate chloride exchanger that is present over here. Okay, so that is why C is incorrect. Okay, and D, the increased sodium in venous plasma is transported to RBC along with chloride. Again, this is incorrect. Okay, so C and D, that is option 4, will be incorrect over here because we have to find the incorrect statements. Right? So this is how you will see a lot of questions are asked from the movement of CO2 and oxygen. Okay, so you have to be very thorough with the gas exchange process that takes place during both external respiration as well as internal respiration. Okay, can you all tell me what is internal respiration? What is internal respiration? External, just now we saw the figure, right? What will be the internal respiration? Cellular respiration, absolutely right, Anu. Correct, good. So cellular respiration is an internal respiration or tissue respiration where the exchange is taking place between the pulmonary capillaries where you have oxygenated blood and the tissues where it has high levels of CO2. So the capillaries will release oxygen and in turn CO2 will come from the tissues and the blood becomes deoxygenated. Okay, so remember these topics from where you get statement based questions. Yes, Rohit, it is cellular respiration. Yes, with the cells, right? MRD, correct. Okay, exchange between the tissues or the cells and the oxygenated blood in the capillaries. Here the capillaries, external respiration, capillaries has deoxygenated blood. Okay, so let's move ahead and see the next question. Right, so the next question is the curve B in the figure below shows the oxygen dissociation profile at physiological concentration of CO2 and at pH 7. An increase in pH would lead to oxygen dissociation profile indicated by. So this is based on oxygen saturation curve. So in respiration also you can see a lot of graph based questions are also asked. So this is the graph that they have given and the question is an increase in pH would lead to oxygen dissociation profile indicated by. So the questions that are based on this type of graph, it can be asked even in part B and even they ask in part C. So you have to be very thorough. Okay. So now tell me what will happen if the pH is increased. What will happen to the oxygen dissociation profile? Which curve will it indicate? Curve A, B, C or D? Okay, very good. Sayanti, correct, absolutely right. Others try, it is very simple. Do not miss this question. If they ask you in part C, it will give you 4 marks. If you have attended the sessions, you know this topic properly. See, no, if you say increase, the question is increase in pH. Increase in pH means alkaline condition, not acidic. Okay, I think you're getting confused. When acidic, it is increase in H plus ions. Okay, if increase in H plus, acidic conditions. Acidic means pH will decrease. So these are some statements that you should know. They are interrelated to each other. Yes, Gautami, right? No. Yes, that is correct. So option you have not written, right? Yeah, that is fine. Yeah, some like you are mentioning curve name, but the option is, what is the right answer? Okay, it is your option 2. So you'll have written curve A, that is completely fine. So it is option 2. Okay. So what happens? So if this is the normal pH, no, in the normal pH, B is the curve. So when acidic condition occurs, that is H plus increases or pH decreases, I would say, curve move towards right. Curve move towards right means C will be the curve. But here the question is saying what will happen when there is increase in pH. Increase in pH means alkaline condition. So pH will increase. When the pH increases, curve move towards left. Okay, where affinity of hemoglobin, affinity for oxygen of hemoglobin will increase. Okay, so that is why the curve will be your curve A. Okay, so increase in pH would lead to oxygen dissociation profile indicated by curve A. Okay, Harika, did you get it? Why it's not C? Anu, many of y'all are saying C. So just don't get confused. C is pH decreases or H plus increases. Okay, it is not pH increases. pH will increase in A, where it is more than 7, right? pH increases or alkaline conditions. Partial pressure of oxygen. See, partial pressure of oxygen will vary. Okay, it depends what type of blood it is, whether it is oxygenated or whether it is deoxygenated. Oxygenated blood will have a partial pressure of oxygen of around 100. Okay, deoxygenated will decrease to around 40, and then further it can decrease when you are vigorously exercising, so it can become 20 mm. So it will vary. Okay, Rohit. So this is for your normal partial pressure of oxygen in oxygenated blood if we consider. Okay. So according to when the partial pressure of oxygen varies, even the partial pressure of CO2 will vary. So based on that also the curve will shift. Yes, it is based on pH 7. Okay, and at normal partial pressure of oxygen. At any one particular partial pressure if you consider. So here the partial pressure is increasing. Okay, but the values we will consider at only one partial pressure. Okay, like here if it is 100, here if I say 40, here it is 20. Okay, so at 100 you can see these are the values. Okay, still it is varying, right? At one partial pressure also it is varying if the pH varies. Even if it is 40, so at one partial pressure, so this will vary, right? The percent saturation will vary if the pH is varying because the curves are different that you are getting. The oxygen saturation curves are different. Clear, Rohit? Did you get this part? Okay. Okay, let's move ahead. So as pH increases, oxygen dissociation curve move to left. Okay, so this is the standard graph. As affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen will increase. Okay, Rohit. Let's move ahead and see the next question. Okay, so this is again related to graph based. Myoglobin MB in muscles, hemoglobin A, HbA in adult RBC, hemoglobin C, HbC in patients with thinner RBC, and hemoglobin S, HbS in sickle cell disease. These are 4 different hemoproteins. Oxygen saturation kinetics of these 4 proteins is different. Okay, these are the 4 graphs. Which of the following profile is most plausible? Yes, Anupam. I'm trying to discuss the graph-based questions, definitely. Because if you know how to interpret the graphs, these questions are very easy. Okay, it will not take much of your time even. So it is very important that you should, whenever you are selecting the questions, try to select the graph-based questions. They are simple. If you apply little logic, you will know the right answer. So which one is most plausible? Which graph, which option you think is correct? You all think that it is correct. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which graph? Okay, Sayanti, absolutely right, correct. Very good. Harika, good. Okay, Anu, very good. Okay, so we'll see how to solve this particular question. So I see all of the students have answered it correctly. So if you have understood the concept of these graph-based questions, you will definitely mark it right. So let's understand this question. So it is, now they have shown you the curves with different designs. Like here there is a complete line for MB. It's a dashed line, but it is a bigger dashed line for HbA. For HbC, this is a curve or line with dots, and for HbS, it is smaller dashed lines. Now you have to find which ones best fits. Where on the y-axis you have the percent saturation of hemoglobin with oxygen. That is, it is written oxygenated hemoglobin percentage, and on the x-axis it is the partial pressure of oxygen. Now, always remember, myoglobin, they have a higher affinity compared to hemoglobin. For what? For oxygen. Okay, myoglobin has a higher affinity compared to hemoglobin. So if myoglobin has a higher affinity, yes, Anupam, right? So the curve will be towards the extreme left. So we have 2 graphs where the curve of myoglobin is towards extreme left. So yes, it can be 1, it can be 4 as well. Okay, now next we will read. It's about hemoglobin A in adult RBC. Now, as I said, hemoglobin will have lesser affinity towards oxygen compared to myoglobin. So hemoglobin A, which does not have any disease, okay, normal hemoglobin A. So definitely it should be next to myoglobin. So next to myoglobin, we will expect that it should be HbA, this dashed lines. Okay. So now our confusion is cleared. It will be option 1, not 4, because 4 has shown a very small dashed line, that is HbS it is showing over here. So this is wrong. HbS will not have more affinity compared to HbA because it is a diseased one. Okay. So after myoglobin, it will be HbA, and after HbA, it will be the thin RBCs. Okay, that is HbC, and after HbC, it should be the diseased condition where it is completely, the diffusion of gases gets affected. So it is in the sickle cell disease, that is HbS. So this option 1, that is the graph 1, will be the right answer over here. Okay. Clear for everyone? So most plausible means which is the most possible or which is the most correct ones based on this profile that we see over here. H plus concentration increased. If H plus increases, pH will decrease. Right, Rohit? That is what you're trying to say. Dissociation of hemoglobin binding affinity will, yes, binding affinity will decrease. Right, absolutely right. See, Rohit. Here, low blood pH means pH will decrease. Okay, normal if I say 7.4, higher is more than 7. Okay, lower is less than 7. Less than 7 means acidic. Okay, so just slight decrease also, you can see there is a major change in the graph. So 7.2. So curve has moved towards right. Just remember, curve moved towards right. Affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen will decrease. Okay, when curve move towards the right, affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen decreases. Okay, so that is why the curve is moving towards here. So you can see at 1 partial pressure, I'll quickly show you over here, like if you consider 30. So for normal curve, where there is normal blood pH, the percent saturation is 50. While at the same partial pressure, if pH decreased or H plus increased, curve moved towards right. Curve moved towards right means percent affinity decreased. I told you affinity decrease means percent saturation will also decrease. Okay, so here it becomes 35. It becomes 35, right? And at the same partial pressure, if we consider where there is high blood pH, okay, so percent saturation now has increased to 65. So if alkaline, curve move towards left, affinity will increase. Okay, and percent saturation will also increase. So these are the 3 points that you can write it somewhere. Okay, make a note of it and remember in what all conditions the curve will move towards right and in what all conditions the curve will move towards left. Okay, Rohit, is your question answered? Okay. So myoglobin is found intracellularly in body tissues. To perform its job, myoglobin must effectively bind any oxygen released from hemoglobin. Myoglobin therefore needs to have a higher oxygen affinity compared to hemoglobin. So for the patient with HbS, with sickle cell disease, they have abnormally low arterial oxygen saturation. So the curve is towards extreme right. Affinity is very less. Okay. Okay, Rohit. Good to know that. So let's move ahead and see the next question. Okay, for this, can you tell me for this particular graph, if CO2 increases, so where will the graph move? It will move towards right or left? If CO2 concentration increases or partial pressure of CO2 increases, this oxygen saturation curve will move towards right or left? Okay, MRD, correct. No, right. Yes, Rohit, Gautami, right. So why the curve is moving towards right when CO2 increases? Because CO2 and pH, they are also interrelated to each other, right? Because when CO2 increases, CO2 combines with water, it forms carbonic acid, and this carbonic acid will dissociate, right? It will form H plus and bicarbonate ions. So what happened? H plus ion increased. H plus ion increase means pH decreased. So that is why they will have the same effect. Increase in CO2 or decrease in pH. Both will have the same effect. In both cases, the curve is moving towards the right. Curve move towards right means affinity is decreasing. Yes, Harika, not left, right, because partial pressure of CO2 is increasing. Okay, so remember, that is what I said. Okay, just remember all the factors, how it will affect the oxygen saturation curve. So high partial pressure of CO2, curve move towards right. Okay, high temperature, curve move towards right. Less pH, curve move towards right. Okay, then another condition, what else? In what all conditions the curve can move towards right? pH, temperature, partial pressure of CO2. So these are some of the important factors that you have to remember. Then BPG, okay, that is one metabolite. So in that case also the curve will move towards right. If high BPG, curve move towards right. Yes, Rohit, Bohr's effect, correct. Yes, Anu, right, DPG or BPG, correct. Okay, so just remember these factors so it will be easy to solve any questions that they put up in CSI. Okay, let's move ahead and see the next question. So this is a very recent question that they had asked in CSIR. So it is again related to respiration. The pressure in the space between lungs and chest wall is known as intrapleural pressure. So it is again a statement based question. The following statements are related to the intrapleural pressure at different phases of respiration. A. At the end of quiet expiration, the tendency of the lung to recoil from chest wall is balanced by the recoil of chest wall in opposite direction, and intrapleural pressure is subatmospheric. B. At the start of inspiration, the intrapleural pressure is subatmospheric. C. The intrapleural pressure becomes more negative during inspiration. D. The intrapleural pressure attains value above atmospheric pressure during expiration. E. The intrapleural pressure becomes positive during strong inspiratory efforts. So can you all tell me which of the following combinations is correct? So try and tell me. If not able to solve, just let me know that as well. If you need any help. Difficult? Easy? Okay, Tripti, Rohit. Okay, so you have to find the correct ones. Okay, right. Anu is correct. So many of you all said 2, 3, 4. I got all the answers, but the right answer is your option 1. Okay, so that is A, B, and C. Okay, students, though you'll have tried, so it is very good. So let's see how to solve this question. Now, for this question, you have to remember this figure. Okay. Now, as I said before as well, that these values, okay, they have not asked. But if you don't know these values, yes, Sayanti, I'm trying to help. Definitely, I'll help you with this question. So how will you solve this? You need to know this particular figure. Okay. So here, they have not asked you the values, but if you don't know the values, you cannot solve, right? Because they have written increase, decrease. So at least some idea you should have about the values. Okay. So remember, atmospheric pressure is 760 mm of mercury. Alveoli pressure is 760. Okay. And intrapleural pressure is 756. So intrapleural pressure between the pleural membranes is less compared to atmospheric. Okay, that is one point. And when the body is at rest, alveolar pressure and atmospheric pressure is same. When inspiration occurs, alveolar pressure decreases. It becomes 758. That is why air moves from high to low. And intrapleural pressure will also decrease from 756 to 754. But can you see the intrapleural pressure is never above the atmospheric pressure? Okay. But in case of expiration, the alveolar pressure is above the atmospheric pressure, that is 762 mm of mercury. And the intrapleural pressure is higher, okay, but still it is less than atmospheric pressure, it is 756. So that is why there is high pressure inside. So air will always move from high pressure to low pressure. That is why air moves, expiration occurs. Air moves from inside to outside. While during inspiration, it is more high. 760 is higher outside and alveolar pressure is 758. So from high to low, it moves inside. Okay. So this understanding you should have. Only then you can solve this question. So let's see what the question states. At the end of quiet expiration, the tendency of the lung to recoil from chest wall is balanced by the recoil of chest wall in opposite direction. And intrapleural pressure is subatmospheric. So intrapleural pressure is always subatmospheric. It is sub means below the atmospheric pressure. So at the end of quiet expiration, so during quiet expiration, what happens? The lungs recoil back, okay, diaphragm relaxes, okay, so same thing is mentioned over here. And the pressure is subatmospheric. It is less than the atmospheric pressure, 756, okay. So A is correct. B says, at the start of inspiration, the intrapleural pressure is subatmospheric. So let's see. At the start, so here it is starting to for inspiration. So definitely the intrapleural pressure is subatmospheric. It is less than 760. So again B is correct. C says the intrapleural pressure becomes more negative during inspiration. More negative means negative, less. Okay. More negative does not mean that negative value. Okay. Compared to atmospheric, whether it is increasing or decreasing. So what it says, the intrapleural pressure becomes more negative during inspiration, means it becomes less. That is when the air can move from 756, it is becoming less, 754. So that is why the air can move from outside to inside. Okay, that is when inspiration will occur. So again, what we can see is statement C is correct. While the D statement says the intrapleural pressure attains value above atmospheric pressure during expiration. I just told you intrapleural pressure is never above the atmospheric pressure. Even though it is increasing and decreasing, it is never above the atmospheric pressure. So this is incorrect. D is incorrect. So who all said 2? So you can see 2 has D. So 2 is incorrect. Okay. Now E, the intrapleural pressure becomes positive relative to atmospheric pressure during strong inspiratory efforts. Will it become positive? Will it become higher compared to atmospheric pressure? No, it is never higher compared to atmospheric pressure. Even though if it is changing, it is well below the atmospheric pressure. Okay. Even though during strong inspiratory efforts. Okay. During strong inspiration, it will never be higher. Right. So that is why E again is incorrect. So who all said 3? So 3 is also incorrect because it has E, it has D. Those are incorrect statements. And fourth one, A and C is correct, but again D is incorrect. Okay, so that is why the right answer will be option 1. Clear, students? Do you all understand how to solve this particular question? So you just need to know this figure. Okay, usually they never asked questions from this figure, but this time they have asked. Okay, this is a figure that we always study this figure, but we tend to forget the values. So you should know, even though if you don't remember the exact values, high, low values you should know. Okay, then for today we have come to the end of our session. Thank you everyone for being so attentive and answering each and every question. And again, we will meet for our next session tomorrow. Thank you everyone. Bye.